Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons in its 37th year of history, the year 2010. And we're going to look at the year 2010 through the filter of clear: catalyst, location, entity, artifact, and relationship. Who is our catalyst in the year 2010 for Dungeons & Dragons? Well, it is the Dungeons & Dragons design lead, Rob Hainsou. Now, Rob Hainsou is working on 4th edition, and he has overseen a lot of the the work that's gone into 4th edition. And to be clear, so I think Rob Hainsou is one of the first people where generally if you get a job working on Dungeons & Dragons, you have achieved a dream. There are literally hundreds of people who have set it as a dream to be professional Dungeons & Dragons designers. It is, who have never made it, right? Like, it's a small number, right? The people who have been on the Dungeons & Dragons design team, sitting in a building, collecting a paycheck, their dental's paid for by the owners of Dungeons & Dragons. That is an incredibly rarefied group. It is very, very small, right? So Rob Hainsou is one of the few people, I think, who achieved a dream and then had to wonder if it was a nightmare. Because 4th edition really wasn't like any other edition of the game. I think every single edition, 2nd edition and 3rd edition, had naysayers. People were coming to conventions saying, I don't like this version. But never before was there really a question like 4th edition, like, is Dungeons & Dragons going to continue, all right? Now, what's really strange is Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition is selling. There are books going off the shelves. They're not flying off the shelves, but it is not a commercially unsuccessful venture, right? The money's there, right? Not huge amounts, but enough to be respectful and enough to say, hey, Dungeons & Dragons is still continuing to sell. Especially with all the, with video games and technology and the advent of streaming and all these things are coming up, right? These are all, major threats to the game, and 4th edition, the game is still selling. But what nobody can ignore is there is this large rumbling of people saying, not my D&D. My desires for what Dungeons & Dragons does have been abandoned. This game is for millennials who want to play video games, not for me, right? And not just and it's not just a large number of players saying this. Some people think as many as 50% of Dungeons & Dragons players walked away from Dungeons & Dragons, right, during 4th edition, which was higher than any other edition. But not just large numbers of players, but important players. Players and actually not just players. People in the TRPG designers, TRPG game masters, TRPG players looking over and saying, I have abandoned Dungeons & Dragons, and I encourage others to do so, right? And then pointing at Pathfinder and saying, this is the true home for Dungeons & Dragons now. It was terrifying for Wizards of the Coast, for Hasbro, right? And they knew they had a real problem on their hands, and it was a very real problem on their hands. Don't forget, 4th edition is the shortest edition stay of ever, because I think within 2 or 3 years it was very, very clear that 4th edition was not an edition that would stay. It was a massive problem for the game that had to be fixed. All right. So at that point, what was our location for? Oh, and Rob Hainsou is overseeing this. And boy, man, there had to be some nights, some sleepless nights over this. Because everybody wanted to be on the design team. Rob Hainsou got there, but man, does it seem like he got there at the wrong time. All right. So, with that said, what was our location for the year 2010? Well, it was the Muir Woods in the San Francisco Bay Area. All right. Now, the Muir Woods are these beautiful historic woods. And I'm not even historic. They are ancient, right? There's these huge, gigantic trees. There are trees that are petrified there, right? Absolutely gorgeous wilderness. But it's in the San Francisco Bay Area. Well, in 2010, the San Francisco Bay Area is starting to show signs that it will become the new Silicon Valley, right? The second Silicon Valley. And this is huge, right? Because technology is huge. Technology is huge in America. It is growing, and innovation is just exploding out of the American economy, spreading all over the world, right? Computers, mobiles, video games, productivity software, just software everywhere, software for everything, software to change virtually every aspect of your life. And that was coming out of Silicon Valley, and now San Francisco Bay appears in 2010 that it's going to become a new San Francisco Valley, a new Silicon Valley. And anybody who thought that was the case, they were 100% right, because San Francisco Bay Area, right near the Muir Woods, where people would go into the woods to enjoy, just some time in nature, right, will become an absolute megalopolis. It just becomes this gigantic city of millionaires, right? Just like Silicon Valley. And San Francisco Bay, which, talk about gentrification. The gentrification of San Francisco is swift, like lightning strike swift, okay? But one of the wonderful things is the Muir Woods stand there with their, beautiful conifer trees and their spruces, just like they always did, and they're there, and they're a place where people can go hike. And it doesn't matter if you're, if you sell beads or if you are a startup owner, you both can go to the Muir Woods, and it's really special and it's unique, and there's really not much like it, right? So who is our entity in the year 2010? Well, our entity is Joe Gebbia. And he has brought out Airbnb, and he is the CEO of Airbnb. Now, this is really important because Airbnb is part of this gig economy, and it's saying, hey, you own a house? Well, guess what? If you got that extra room, you could make your house into a hotel, right? And this is huge because all over the United States of America, there are new ways to work, new ways to get monetization out of things you already own, new models for buying and selling. And Airbnb is one of the most dramatic, innovative ways that people are taking things they already own and finding new wealth streams with these things they already own. And this is all coming about because of technology, because of computers, because of software, right? And, we love Dungeons & Dragons so much. It's this beautiful, wonderful game. But in many ways, it's one of the things that just is a gigantic arrow pointing back to print, pointing back to human proximity, pointing back to friendship. These things that really seem quite alien in our new, wonderful, very, money-laden reality of the new tech now, right? But Dungeons & Dragons is struggling in these times, and it really does seem like everybody to be a retro product. And so you have this dichotomy of, oh, this is a retro product, and hey, this is a retro product. We can remember the things that we're forgetting in this new tech now, right? And it's really wonderful and beautiful and frightening, and it's pretty incredible. By the way, I've stayed in Airbnbs quite a few times. I use them for bicycle adventures that I take in cities like Boston, Washington, New York City, and it's wonderful, and it makes traveling much cheaper and much more convenient and much more comfortable, and it's pretty amazing, right? So Airbnb is a really important change in the world. And also, just to be clear now, this new tech future, which threatens D&D, in some ways is very much a boon to D&D, because there's a lot of people like me who work in tech and are making that tech money and spending it on D&D products, right? So at the same time, it's a threat, and at the same time, it's actually a boon. It's a boon and a bane. So technology is really a huge part of the story of Dungeons & Dragons. And there's this gigantic question over, is Dungeons & Dragons the great escape from technology, or does Dungeons & Dragons need to really fully embrace technology, right? I think it's a good escape from technology. It's one of the things that reminds us who we are, and I think it's an awesome retro product, clearly. All right, so what is our artifact in the year 2010? It is the Rob Hainsou it is the 2010 Rob Hainsou Red Box. So this is a new beginners box set. It is the basic rules for the game contained within a set. But the 2010 Rob Hainsou Red Box Dungeons & Dragons Red Box with dice and character sheets and a little pamphlet in there with the rules on it. It is a complete reconstruct of the 1981 Moldvay Red Box, right? And this, I think, and in some ways, people just looked at this and were delighted, and some people were absolutely infuriated, saying, you know, to put these rules, these mechanical, these tactical strategy, you know, narrative be darned rules into what is, you know, aping the 1981 Moldvay Red Box is just, it would really make people upset. Really made people upset, right? So, but also it looked just like the 1981 Moldvay. So when you looked at the cover, some people were just like, oh, you know, it's like a puppy. You're like, oh, that's cool. And it has this, you know, barbarian on the cover, and he's got a sword slashing it sideways at the teeth of a dragon who's trying to eat him. It's really epic, and it looked just like the 1981 Moldvay Red Box, but the 2010 Rob Haintsu Red Box was a challenging thing, right? Because it was a brand new game with a brand new focus, trying to look like the old game, right? And at this time, again, you can't forget, there's a lot of trouble for Dungeons & Dragons at this time. There were really people who were wondering if Dungeons & Dragons would be an ongoing game, right? Because a lot of people thought Pathfinder would just take over and Dungeons & Dragons would fall to the wayside. Boy, was that wrong, right? But it's there. What is the relationship for Dungeons & Dragons in the year 2010? Well, the relationship Dungeons & Dragons has in the year 2010, and in every year before that and every year after, is to comedy. Dungeons & Dragons has always had a rich relationship with comedy. All right, so comedy happens in different ways in Dungeons & Dragons. So one, it happened within the pages of Dragon Magazine. There were multiple comedy strips. There were comedy strips, like almost like the funnies you would see in a newspaper, right? And those were very enjoyable. Some of the humor was a little off color, and we kind of grimace today, but those were there. But then in the game, in the Dungeons & Dragons game itself, many players would make comedic names. People would do funny things with spells, right? And then the other thing there, and then also many dungeon masters would try to make their games funny. They would try to insert humor into their games. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Last thing I want to talk about with comedy is I want to talk about the best form of comedy, in my opinion. The best laughs you will ever get in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign is when you have a fully, very straight, no comedy tabletop role-playing game, and something will, without a doubt, happen that is very, very funny that was not meant to happen. So basically, generally, you know, with Dungeons & Dragons, you have intelligent, creative artists, right? And they're running the game and they're playing the game, and you will find some very, very sharp wit at the table, and often, but the best comedy happens in Dungeons & Dragons when no one is trying to make a joke. And I've been at every table I've ever been at where we played more than a one-shot. There was a moment of uproarious laughter that would happen naturally. Comedy that would occur in the game that was never intended. And these could be real, very, very good belly laughs. And it's just a wonderful time. And it also points back to the most beautiful part about the game, which is friendship. Friendship is just such a key, beautiful aspect of Dungeons & Dragons. And it's right there. Comedy is a big part of Dungeons & Dragons, and Dungeons & Dragons has a beautiful relationship with comedy to this very day. All right, well, I would like to... That is a clear history of Dungeons & Dragons in the 37th year of Dungeons & Dragons history, the year 2010. I would love to know, have you ever stayed in their Airbnb? Did you play Dungeons & Dragons when you were there? Also, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful day.